Hey everyone, welcome to the Theater of Football. I'm Patrick Heinrich, and today I'm taking the spot as the host and joined today by Mike Odom to go through a preview of the upcoming Crystal Palace game and some other fun odds and ends. So welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Patrick. I'm ready for a fight.
Good. It's definitely going to be a fight. So I think just to kick us off, I think the biggest news right now is injuries going into the Crystal Palace game. So we had obviously Shaw, who was confirmed to have a sprained ankle. Brandon Williams, who took that hard hit in the Southampton game. And also received word that Greenwood also has a swollen ankle or may have a little bit more of an injury after the Romeo hit than we had initially thought. So going into the Crystal Palace game, what are your thoughts on who's going to be able to play and who's going to see the bench?
I think Greenwood was always going to not be in the starting 11. That's not a knock against his form lately. It's been great, or a knock against his performance against Southampton. That was not up to what he had done in the previous matches. But I think it was always a game that he would probably sit out. I look for him to bring back Dan James to play Palace. But as far as does the injury prevent him from making the bench or not, if he does have an injury and Ole didn't want to risk him didn't want to start him in the first place, I would say to just leave him in Manchester then.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I would give him every opportunity to show that he can potentially play, that he recovered from that. I guess it was from the Romeo tackle in the first half of the Southampton game. So see if he can recover. If he recovers, then Ole can do what his original plans were, which was either to start him or put him on the bench. Like I said, I just had a feeling that this game coming up 3 days after the Southampton game, that he was going to put him on the bench. As far as Brandon and Luke go, it was good news, I thought, in the press conference this morning, that it wasn't anything worse than swelling for Luke, and it was just the cut for Brandon. We obviously mentioned that we saw the blood on his shorts during the game, and we hoped he didn't have a concussion. That does not seem to be the case. Ole, assuming Ole was being forthcoming, he didn't mention concussion, so I would assume that that's not the case. So I guess it depends on where the gash happened. He said above his eye. If it was, just above his eye, like in his, eyebrow, then having stitches there, it may be difficult for him to recover. It's probably swollen as well, like Shaw's ankle. But I would think if it's up maybe further on his forehead, we've seen players get stitches there, and then they wrap their heads in bandages and maybe the rugby skull cap that Petr Cech wore for years in goal for Chelsea and Arsenal. So he could maybe wear one of those, so he could potentially play. I don't know if Ole would make him do that or not. The player might want to do it. If the player wants to do it, I say let him. I think as far as Luke goes, we'll see. Jeremy and I mentioned in our last video that we thought he would go to a back three in this game. I don't see that being the case, because when Ole was asked about Brandon and Luke, he said that the players had the day off yesterday, and at the time of the press conference, they hadn't practiced yet. So he hadn't seen the players. So given that, I doubt he would implement a back three. I know we've played it many times this year, but after having the 3-month break for lockdown and then coming back, we haven't played a back three. I doubt he would just spring that on him. I think that would be a mistake to do that without at least a couple of days of work on it. So I definitely want to see that. So if neither one of them can go, I would look for as Jeremy said in the last video, he thought Fred would play left wing back. I would look at Fred potentially playing left full back. I just don't think Ole would risk playing Ethan Laird in a spot
Mhm.
like this. I'd like to see him play, but maybe he takes a spot on the bench instead of Dallo. I don't know,
Yeah.
but hopefully sound like positive news. I'm trying to be optimistic up until we see the team sheet or until we get word of who's traveled down to South London.
Mhm. Yeah, and all three of them, Williams, Shaw, and Greenwood, did show up for training today. So I think that's an optimistic sign. Just that their injuries may not be as bad. Certainly, I feel the same way about Brandon Williams. Good to hear that if it was just an eye injury or a cut, that's something that can be easily remedied. I think for a match. So that's optimistic. Um, also one of the things that Ole said in the press conference as well is that he's, planning on, not giving anybody a rest of the rest of the players for this upcoming game in Crystal Palace. Do you think that that's a good decision based on, how well rested Chelsea will be after their, win against Norwich, which, based on their style and gameplay seemed pretty laid back. So do you think it's a good thing for Ole to make that call?
Yeah, let me not answer your question and just display my utter disdain for the Premier League. To have us play on Monday night against Southampton, again on Thursday night against Crystal Palace, and then a Sunday afternoon game, I believe, in the FA Cup semifinal against Chelsea, while Chelsea plays last Saturday, and then they played yesterday, Tuesday. That's garbage. That is a garbage decision. I was once told that if you want to be a successful team, you can't be upset with how the fixtures are arranged. That's crap. There's ways around it. Liverpool could have played on Monday. I mean, and move our game back to Sunday. I think Liverpool actually played on Saturday, but you could have moved our game back to just Sunday and then let us play on Wednesday.
Yep.
And then, Chelsea has one extra day to prepare. I wouldn't be upset about that. We'd still have 3 days off before that big semifinal. So that's fine. But you're giving now you brought up Norwich and how it was pretty much a stroll last night, and it was Norwich never looked like doing anything at all, which is disappointing even for them because of Chelsea's back line. But you can't control when the fixtures, when the teams come up to play, if you will. That's based upon luck. What can be controlled is the Premier League deciding to put United on Wednesday. We should be playing probably right now.
Yeah.
And not stick us on Thursday, not make us play Monday night, then Thursday night, then Sunday early or late afternoon. I mean, that's crap. And then let Chelsea have 2 extra days off. That's garbage. That's garbage. Having said that, we'll still beat them. But
that's right.
That's not fair. Now, to go back to your question about rotating players and substitutions, what Ole said in the press conference is pretty much what he has to say. He has to say, I think he said something like, I don't worry about the next game. I only worry about the game that's in front of me. So I'm going to pick the best lineup I can for that game.
Mm-hmm.
And look at some of his Europa League games. I mean, when we went to Kazakhstan to play in the Europa League, when we were all but guaranteed a spot in the round of 32, he took all kids plus Jesse Lingard, who is probably our worst senior player right now. and so that's crap what he said, in my opinion, but he kind of has to say it because that's also the message, the cliche he's selling to his players, like, oh, we take it one match at a time and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So I do expect when he went to Norwich in the FA Cup quarterfinal, how many changes did he make? 8 that day, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
I think it was 8. I wouldn't say it'd be that much. He said before that match, I do remember him saying that he was just going to make a few changes, and it ended up being a high, much more than what I would consider a few. For this game, I think he will make a few changes. Now, it'll depend upon Shaw and Williams. Like I said, I think he was always going to put Dan James back in the squad for Mason. And I wouldn't be surprised. I said on our last video that like all but certainty that Matic would not start tomorrow. But then I was thinking the next day, I was like, Matic was the one player in the stoppage time that looked like he was still full of running.
Right.
He looked energized. I was like, so maybe he should start. Maybe he can start. I think if he can start, he should. So I thought he had a good game against Southampton, one of our best players in that game. So
Yeah.
I do think that if he can, he should start. If he does start, probably Paul will start as well.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if Bruno does not start.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think he looked sluggish a lot during the Southampton game. Got subbed off there, and I know some people probably disagreed with him getting removed at that game, but
Yeah.
I think he just looked sluggish, and removing him, I believe, for McTominay was a good attempt to try to gain back control in that game. It didn't happen.
Right.
It was a good idea at that point, I thought. So I think you could see him removed maybe for Pereira or Mata, probably Mata.
Yeah,
I don't know how I feel about that, but you could see that as well. And then I could see maybe Bailly coming in for Lindelof too. Again, I thought Lindelof played well in the last game up until stoppage time.
Yeah.
He made a couple crucial interceptions or blocks on crosses there at the near post.
Yeah.
So he did a pretty good job. But I think those are you could see left back, a new left back, a new center back, and maybe some changes in the midfield mainly. I think my outside the box thought would be maybe Bruno. That's not necessarily what I would do. That's just kind of my prediction.
Yeah, although I have seen one of the trends that I've kind of noticed with Bruno, and I don't know if you've noticed this as well, but it seems just about like, every third or fourth match, he kind of has, kind of struggles a little bit. And then the match that he comes back, he's like very on target, very, kind of re-energized, or, maybe it kind of seems like he, had a bad day, but comes back, really strong. So I don't know if you've seen that as well, but that's sort of one interesting trend that I've noticed from him.
Yeah, and this is the first time I've really said to bring him out, but you do bring up a good point. He does seem every third or fourth game, fifth game, something like that. He'll put in a game where you're like, that's not quite up to his normal high standard.
Yeah,
but I'm not saying to drop him, but I think it may just be wise to start him on the bench.
Yeah,
start Mata or Pereira. Pereira apparently played really well in our friendly matches before we got back going again. So maybe he still has some of that form left. Who knows? But I would just say with the 5 sub rule too, you can always bring on, like, if things are we're not creating a thing in the first half, then halftime, don't waste the substitution window. Just bring on Bruno for Mata or Pereira, whoever's in there, if they're not up to snuff.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. As soon as you mentioned, not starting Bruno and keeping him on the bench, I thought that's probably a very, wise thing to do, especially to bring him in, based on how we're doing in the first substitution window or at the half. So, I think that's a good idea. So just looking at, the other members of the team and looking at, kind of some of the interconnectedness between some of the players. So we have kind of this friendly, ongoing kind of side action between Rashford and Martial on who's going to end the season with the most goals. I think I hear most of the commentary about this. It's a very positive thing to have, kind of friendly competition. It encourages players to, take those shots and, be more opportunistic and have more confidence in scoring goals. Do you think there's any negative though in, the recent injuries that we've had coming up on the Crystal Palace game or the Chelsea game, and trying to get more game time with Martial looking a little bit upset being subbed out? And do you think that there's is that competition between the two good, or do you think it puts Ole in a difficult position?
No, like the competition's definitely good. But you do bring up a good point. It does put Ole in a difficult position, but it's one he should relish.
Right.
Having two strikers performing well. But I just look at that Bournemouth match, and he used his last substitution window, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or you all at home, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Brandon Williams coming on for Luke Shaw was our last substitution, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe he made the double change.
Yeah, he may have been brought on McTominay after that.
Yeah, I think he did. Now I think of it. So, but whenever he made the last substitution window change, I would have brought on Ighalo at that point. For Martial for two reasons. First of all, Martial looked gassed. He looked gassed by the 60th minute. You saw him go on that mazy run and then shoot high over the bar.
Yep.
But that was like an NFL fullback, who makes it through the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, what do I do now? He just kind of stumbles around, and that's sort of, he just kept going because there's comedy of errors from the Southampton defenders as well.
Yeah,
so it wasn't. I mean, you can give him credit, but it wasn't graceful or anything like that, like we've seen out of him. So he looked shattered to me. I would have taken him off. And the second reason was you bring on, we were losing control of the match even before Brandon Williams' injury.
Yeah.
And you bring on Ighalo, and with us pinned back. Now Martial played one of his best games as, holding the ball up, getting it out of his feet, moving it along, or picking up fouls, doing the types of things that a striker, a number 9, needs to do to get his team up the pitch.
Yeah.
But by that time he was tired and he was done. He looked done. And I would have brought on Ighalo because he can do that's like his bread and butter. That and being in the 6-yard box to tap home. some scrappy balls. So
yeah, right.
Unless it's in Austria, then he juggles the ball and hits a worldie. But that's neither here nor there. But back to your original point about putting Ole in a bad position. And this is, I'm not one of the supporters who bashes Ole and doesn't think he should be in charge. And I think he's done a pretty good job so far.
Yeah.
But the one area that I don't really like is he's sometimes not strong enough with making decisions. You saw he took Martial off at Aston Villa, and Martial kind of slowly walked off, looked perturbed. Didn't look very happy on the bench either. And you do have that internal rivalry, if you will, with Rashford, where they both want to be top scorer.
Yeah.
And then also after the Villa match, he was asked about Martial, and that probably upset Solskjaer that he was asked about Martial's attitude for wanting to come off. And so he probably leans to not making this sub when he should, because he doesn't want Martial to mope again.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to answer that question after the game.
Yeah.
But you're leaving a substitution in your pocket when you can put on a player who you've already made some changes to try and get the game more under control, mainly bringing Fred in for Pogba, trying to get control back in the midfield. That didn't work.
Yeah.
You bring on Ighalo, we can hit it long, he can hold it up, we can get out of our box. So that was a move that he should have made. Instead, he left that substitution in his pocket because he had no more windows to make it. And I think it does go back to a little bit of weakness on his part to make that strong decision. And, you see other teams have star number 9s, and they'll rarely play a whole 90 minutes. I mean, that's part of it. And Martial, he worked his socks off those first 60 minutes. So I don't necessarily blame him for being tired. That first half, he ran all over the place. So
he made all the opportunities.
With 5 subs, maybe he was actually expecting Ighalo to come on for him, so he was going to lay it all out there.
Yeah,
and it didn't happen, and he was shattered. So it does present him this internal competition with a dilemma. I will just leave you with this. Martial or Rashford will be top scorer. They might both tie for top scorer, but that's only because Mason Greenwood ran out of games. Excuse me.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. We could definitely agree on that one. We'll definitely see all three of them, hopefully, in competition for that next season. One can hope.
We definitely will, but I won't be surprised if Greenwood runs away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last question today, I heard a couple from a couple news sources saying that out of Chelsea, Leicester, and Man United going into the last three games, Man United has the statistically easiest route in the games that they have coming up, with Chelsea having the hardest route with their games. Do you think that that's pretty accurate, or would you disagree with that?
I absolutely do not agree. I've read that too. First of all, Chelsea won the game they showed up yesterday against Norwich. So they're now 5 points clear, or 4 points clear, excuse me, with the game in hand. So that's I would want to be in that. If United was in that position, then I would absolutely agree with that article. But they're not. The other thing Chelsea has going for it, yes, they play Liverpool on the penultimate day of the season, and then they host Wolves on the final day of the season. Those could be tough games, but you're playing the champions after they've been crowned champions. Yeah, Liverpool will be awarded the trophy, I believe, after that game, but they've already beat Liverpool in the FA Cup, and they were probably unlucky to not get a draw, at least at Stamford Bridge in the league back in the fall. So I just don't agree. And the final reason why I don't agree is because United plays Leicester the last day of the season.
Yeah.
Both those teams can't win that game.
Right.
One can win the game. Neither might not win the game. So be already 4 points clear. Yes, with the game more played, with 2 matches left for them. To me, given Leicester's form and our – I don't want to be negative, but like Jeremy, and I think you as well brought up a good point that we're given opportunities and we just blow it.
Yeah.
In years past. So I mean, if I was a Chelsea fan, or if I was a neutral, I would think Chelsea, having taken care of the Norwich game like they should have, would have the best opportunity. Yeah, their goal differential is not as good as not anywhere near as good as Leicester's or United's, but I don't think it'll come down to that. I think Chelsea has the best opportunity. I mean, and then you look at given the fact that Chelsea still have to play Liverpool and Wolves. You look at Leicester's schedule; they still play Sheffield United, Tottenham, and Man United, like I mentioned before. So those are going to be 3 tough games, and given their capitulation on the South Coast at the Vitality Stadium on Sunday, and they're without Xianshu in defense, who for me is by far their best center back.
Yeah,
it's gonna be tough sledding for them. So I would say with Chelsea's advantage in points, despite playing a game more, they're in the driver's seat for top 4. And yes, I think that between us and Leicester that we should get there, but like I said, we've seen this plot before. So
when I first read that, I was like, no way. Like, I mean, Leicester has a way more difficult path than Chelsea does. Sure, Chelsea on paper probably has a more difficult path if you consider, Liverpool. But I agree with you. I mean, they're kind of backseat driving at the moment with having won already. Although I would have expected Chelsea to win by a much greater margin against Norwich. So I thought, maybe, but again, I think they also weren't taking it very seriously. They needed to put 1 goal in the back of the net, and that's all they needed to do, and that's all they did. So they did the base minimum of what they needed to do. So, and the well-oiled blades, I think will pose a big challenge to Leicester. I think Tottenham is certainly not just going to roll over. So I really think that Leicester has the much more difficult position, but if there's one thing that we can all agree on as United fans, it's don't blow the opportunity, because we've definitely seen that before.
Please don't blow it.
Yes, don't blow it. And on that note, the curtain is now closing in the theater of football. Thank you all for joining us today. If you have any comments or disagree with anything we said, let us know in the comments section. And if you're new, please subscribe and hit the like button. And for Mike, I'm Patrick, and thank you all for joining.
Take care.
Oh, hello. Thank you for watching the Theater of Football. If you think Mike got it wrong yet again, please leave your thoughts in the comment section below.